Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Free West Media YouTube channel. It's morning here in South Africa, but on the other side of the world in Texas, it's evening. So I'm going to say good evening to Brandi.
Hi, thank you, Dan.
Well, Brandi from Texas, she's also known as a conservative Texas chick, and she's been doing quite a lot of research into the US election fraud and the whole controversy and debacle surrounding the recent presidential election. So, Brandi, you found out some fascinating things. Do you want to share some of it with us?
Sure, I would love to. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure as always. And as I said to you, Dan, I've been speaking out about this because, I speak to people all over the world, and so many people tell me that they don't get any other information except negative. And so I'm like, there's so much more. But
hey, sorry to interrupt you, but you described this that you are living through a kind of an ANC takeover of the US, but maybe without the mob violence and the terrorism, but it's something of the same order. There's a takeover of the United States going on.
That's exactly how I feel. I mean, if you think about it, Black Lives Matter and Antifa, they are doing, or they're attempting to do the exact same thing that the ANC did, and that is to cause mass chaos, to destabilize the government, to overthrow the government. I mean, it's really scary because the lies, the collusion, the blaming of everything, it's what everything they do, they blame it on, they mirror that onto conservatives and blame them for it. It is just, I feel like I'm at a Mad Hatter tea party. I drank the wrong bottle of potion and now I can't wake up.
Well, yes. I mean, I've already drawn certain parallels between what's happening in the US currently and what happened to South Africa, that this kind of thing that we're going through, this nightmare, is lying in your not too distant future. But it seems that it's accelerating the whole process, and you are increasingly living through the same reality that we've got here, and including what you're saying about Black Lives Matter, because I didn't know much about that organization, but the other day I was reading up a little bit on its leaders and so on, and then I came upon this person called Patrisse Cullors, and she's an outright Marxist. I mean, she says it quite openly. I mean, which is exactly like the ANC here. I mean, they call each other comrade, and they quote Karl Marx and Engels and Franz Fanon and all these
Guevara,
and she's exactly the same.
I mean, these are...
And now she's written a letter of demand to Joe Biden when he becomes president, that they want some sort of a revolution to happen in the United States. I don't know whether you've seen that letter.
They wanted Texas. Good luck.
They wanted Texas.
They tried to demand Texas as reparations. Texas is not the right place that you want to try to take over.
Okay. Although the election was a bit close in Texas, wasn't it? I mean, the Republicans only got about 53%.
There was a lot of voter fraud. There was a lot of voter fraud in Texas. We've actually had the poll people in charge of the polls, actually one not too far from where I am, she was arrested. We've had several people arrested for voter fraud.
Well, maybe I can ask
we do have some liberal areas, Dallas, Houston, Austin, But
All the
Texas is
big
huge,
cities.
and the majority of Texas, right? The majority of Texas is rural, farm, ranch, and conservatives. Um, the cities are liberal, but I literally do not know. I've never met a Joe Biden supporter. Never, not once.
In Texas.
Mm-mm.
Okay. And how widespread do you think this voter fraud was during the elections?
Well, as I said to you a little while ago, I just, to see what would happen, I Googled pretty much the same question you just asked. And I could not find one article or one bit of information on the truth. And the truth is, people on Twitter uncovered more evidence of mass voter fraud across the US in 2 days than the whole investigation for 2 years on Trump for colluding with Russia found in 2 years. In 2 days on Twitter. Okay, people, I mean, there are videos, there are audio, there are videos of people tearing up ballots and saying the Donald Trump ballots don't make it through. There is evidence live on CNN of vote switching where a certain Democratic candidate gains a certain amount of votes, and at the same moment, the Republican candidate loses those votes. That's the
Wow.
software in the
Wow.
voting machines.
I'm just going to
And
share,
switching votes.
we did an article too on the freewaysmedia.com website about the voter fraud. And then we put on Donald Trump's tweet where he also talks about it. I'm just going to share it on the screen with you. Let's see. Okay. If you can, yes, can you see it there? He says,
Yes.
Donald Trump said, tweets, a report, Dominion deleted 2.7 million Trump votes nationwide. Data analysis finds 221,000 Pennsylvania votes switched from President Trump to Biden. 941,000 Trump votes deleted. States using Dominion voting systems switched 435,000 votes from Trump to Biden. So, I mean,
Right. And
that's just incredible. And well, their Twitter Twitter put some sort of a remark on there. But would you say that Trump is essentially speaking the truth there?
absolutely. 47 counties in Pennsylvania alone used this Dominion voting software in these machines. That is in just Pennsylvania, 47 counties. This same software was used all across the nation in the same way. And when we talk about these numbers, these are just the numbers for the, the voting machines. This does not count the ballot, the fake ballots, the destroyed votes, the ones found, they've found on video, service members that are overseas, their mail-in ballots in the trash. This doesn't even count that. This is so massive and so huge, and they're trying so hard to cover it up and make it seem as if nothing to see here, which most people have learned when the mainstream media says nothing to see here, you need to see because something's happening. And when they're making a big deal out of nothing, it means they're distracting us from something very important.
But apparently, this Dominion software, voting software, was previously used in Venezuela and other places in South America, and it was actually meant to swing a vote or to falsify votes.
So it's said that Dominion software used in these voting machines was created by Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. I actually saw an interview earlier where a reporter was asking this question and the man wouldn't answer. He dodged the question and changed, the subject. And just a couple of interesting things about this Dominion software is that this software that they said glitched, it wasn't a glitch. This was an algorithm put into the software. So one of Trump's attorneys, and she just so happens to be one of the former attorneys for George Bush in 2000, when Al Gore was president for 1 month before it was overturned. Sidney Powell said that they had found, she's also General Flynn's attorney, she said they had discovered an algorithm that calculated how many votes Biden needed to win. She said they found out machines were transferring just enough votes from Trump to Biden so he could win. The Dominion software the machines used to tally the votes was created to do this. This was no accident. And she said this on the news. But this is what people need to understand, Dan, is Trump and his legal team, they would not be so sure of everything and be filing these legal cases. This is not a stupid man. This is a man who has basically led them to their own demise, like a Judas goat. So he had to win by a landslide in order for them to cheat to such a degree that if exposed, they would have no culpable deniability, none. And that's what they've done. But he knew all along, they prepared for it for 4 years, top secret, only a few people knew about it. The ballots were watermarked. I mean, please tell me how more people voted for Joe Biden in states than there were people registered to vote.
In
how do you have
Wisconsin,
more votes?
that was the case, wasn't it?
Right. So you have more votes than there were total ballots put out. How is that possible?
But now the big question is Trump going to have enough time to launch all these legal cases before the 20th of January? And I think there's another cutoff date in December as well, 15th of December.
Right. So this is how it works, guys. And this is what is going to most likely happen. So what happens if the president does not concede the election? And this is a big thing. This is very important. Hillary Clinton told Joe Biden, no matter what, do not concede. And she told him that for a reason. And I hate to say that it was a very smart thing to tell him. So if the president does not concede, and this has happened 2 times in history, okay? It happened in 1800 and 1824. According to Amendment 12 of the Constitution, if the president does not concede, and if a court cannot rule, so if they can't come to a conclusion in these courts, it goes to the House of Representatives. So it's like the election never happened. The whole election is thrown out, and it goes to the House of Representatives. Okay, there are 400, and this may sound scary because technically the Democrats control the House, right? They have more seats in the House, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything because there are 475 members of the House of Representatives. As it stands now, if the election were made null and void and went to the House of Representatives to be decided, the 12th Amendment says that each state gets one vote, okay? Not each representative, each state. So 37 seats or 37 states are represented by Republicans.
Okay.
So if it were to go to the House of Representatives, 37 states vote for Donald Trump to be the president, right? And I mean, even with the Supreme Court justices that are in place, something else that's interesting is 3 other members of the Bush legal team in 2000 are Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Amy Coney Barrett, and Justice Gorsuch, all appointed by Trump to the Supreme Court. And they were all members of the Bush legal team. And Amy Coney Barrett was, her mentor was Justice Scalia. So, and Kamala Harris, at Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation hearing, Kamala Harris actually accused Amy Coney Barrett, who's a Catholic. She was attacked for her religion, but she also accused her of adopting 2 Black children, so to not seem racist. She not only said that, she suggested that the children should be removed from her home, her own children. So
yeah, I saw something like that. That's awful, isn't it?
It is awful. I mean, and Judge Kavanaugh, what they did, they tried to destroy this man's life. I mean, it's just unbelievable. So I doubt that Supreme Court justices are going to be willing to provide much help to people who literally tried to destroy their lives. But Trump has been planning for this, okay? Either way, he wins. And I know that the whole world is watching. In this election, there will be consequences far and wide. And I know that. I know how important it is for not only South Africa, but for a lot of other people in the world.
Yes, for people in Europe and yeah, in the Middle East and North Africa and everywhere, because we also did a story on freebasmedia.com as to how the Democrats and the whole military establishment in the US, they are getting ready to launch a new series of wars because they're going to make money out of them. And Trump was trying to bring peace to the world. But now they want to reignite all the conflicts. And so, I mean, the fact that there are so many refugees now in Europe is a direct result of all the wars that Hillary Clinton and Obama started, when she was Secretary of State and he was president.
Right. And Donald Trump he doesn't get enough credit because 98.5, and this is a real statistic here in the US. So 98.5 of his coverage on the mainstream media is negative. If this man said we need to breathe air to survive, they would find a reason why it's bad and horrible and everybody's going to die, if we do it.
Yeah.
He's treated so unfairly. I mean, it's horrifying because he has accomplished so much as far as peace talks. The first American president to set foot on North Korean soil. To media, no big deal. They actually were acting like he did something wrong. And this was a major accomplishment, to meet with Kim Jong-un. He's brought, I don't want to say peace to the Middle East, but he has made leaps and bounds with trying to not go to war. You know, there were plenty of times where he could have taken us to war in Turkey, Iraq. You know, a lot of things have been done that could have led us to a war, but he avoided that. He avoided it.
Yeah, sure. And apparently now, I mean, some of these generals and so on, they are boasting about how they actually misled Trump as to the number of troops that were still left in Iraq and places like that. You know, so they actually lied to him, and they are now boasting about it because they know now that if Biden had to take over, then they would just relaunch all the conflicts.
Right. And they do this because he has a great respect for the military. I mean, I have seen this man stop his entire motorcade with the Secret Service freaking out to get out and shake hands of military on the side of the street, police officers, firemen, out of respect, you know, and they lie to him because they know that he wants our soldiers home. And it's just really sad that it's like the Democratic Party has gone so far from what it was meant to be. I mean, JFK has probably rolled over in his grave about 1,000 times this year.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. Well, I think, Brandi, we've got still a lot to talk about, but it's been extremely interesting chatting to you. And I think the viewers now have a much better idea of what to expect and what the fight is about in the US around this whole election fraud issue. Thomas, thank you very much for your time. And yes, and let's continue the conversation sometime soon.
I would love to. Thank you for having me on. And one last thing is, I know that you've seen the video of Joe Biden's speech in Congress about the vile, repugnant Afrikaner regime. And I just want to remind everyone in the world who cares anything about what is happening in South Africa, how Joe Biden feels about the white minority population in South Africa. I mean, he literally called for violence against them, and he helped put a terrorist regime into power. You can
Yes,
find the video on YouTube.
yeah,
his
you're
speech
quite right.
on it.
Actually, I've posted that video on another Afrikaans video on the Prague channel, and lots of people have seen it. So I think they're pretty much aware, you know, of what he said back then in 1986, and yeah, and what problems he could cause for us even now, because being so, I mean, he's a real leftist. And even he was actually anti-patriotic, you know, as we were chatting before, just before we started this conversation. You know, the fact that he actually, during the Vietnam War, towards the end of the Vietnam War, he actually wanted to embarrass the US even more by withholding funding in the Senate from repatriating some of the embassy personnel and some of the Vietnamese refugees. So, you know, he's actually stabbed America itself in the back several times already.
I mean, we just proved with leaks from his son, crackhead Hunter Biden, who left his computer somewhere, and Steve Bannon ended up with the hard drives, that he's absolutely been taking money from Ukraine and from China. He's absolutely taken money, billions of dollars. His son was hired by a Chinese company and paid, and a Ukrainian company, it paid billions of dollars for a job he'd never done. He had no clue.
Yes,
Threatening, you know,
you're
a
quite right.
prosecutor in the Ukraine with being fired unless they fired them.
Yes, you're quite right. Maybe we can make that the topic of another video, all the corruption around Hunter Biden. Shall we do that?
Sure, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Okay, well, thanks everybody for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and then we'll talk again soon about all these interesting issues. Goodbye.